Hi everybody, this is my voiceover for Class Wars in June of 2016. This month is my weakest performance this year, and it's kind of a common theme in my videos lately. I've been doing worse and worse, and that's because I've not really been recharging very much, or at all, since February, and so I just can't, my stats aren't keeping up with everybody else. This month for Class Wars, I tried an entirely different strategy than I've done in the past, and it did not work. I'm using Chaos Rune instead of Rage Rune, so I'm not using the Lightbringer, and then I'm using a brand new Fire Self that I just made instead of my normal Frigga. And there were a couple reasons why I thought this would be a better strategy. Here I almost killed Shady. This is such a frustrating fight. I got him so low. I thought it might be a better strategy. My idea was that because players are using the Guardian Titans and Guardian Runes early in the fight, that there's little advantage to getting into Sylph mode first anymore. And so instead of trying to get into Sylph mode first, I thought I would just get into Sylph mode once those shields were gone, and then hit them really hard with some physical attack damage, which is why I'm using this Fire Self. Because in the past, I've not been able to really do any damage to my opponents, because Friggas use magic attack. And here's my buddy Asher, who actually goes on to take first this month. This is his first time winning Class Wars, and he said that almost all of his fights looked pretty much like the one that we just had against, that I just had against him, where he killed me before I even got into Sylph mode. He said he did that against almost every single player. There were only one or two that ever got into Sylph mode against him. So he just used that Lightbringer to pop up into Sylph mode right away, and then took out his opponents with his Thor and superior firepower. So, shout out to him and congrats. Well deserved and long overdue. He's been in the top 3, give or take, for years now, and hasn't taken home a first place win until this month. So, congratulations to Asher. So here against Big Bailey, I'm quite outgunned. I'm not running any Electro Fire resistance this month. If you want to see what my resistance is, the first couple seconds of the video I showed my resistances. So you can check those out. So with no Electric Fire, I know I'm kind of hopeless against a Thor, because they just hit so hard. I don't have a Thor of my own. They're expensive with the fused selves, and I thought that my straight Fire Self would do just as well as a Thor in Class Wars as a Mage, because of that resistance, or the physical damage advantage. So here's Salistar, using a Frigga as his main. We're seeing more and more Friggas nowadays. I think there's 3 Friggas being used this month, and if I had used mine, I would have been the 4th. So that's considerably more, considering back in January, February, March, I was the only one. But people are starting to favor it. I think because of the defensive bonuses, it helps them stay alive. And then also being able to control when you have your shields and heals out is a pretty big tactical advantage as well. The thing is, using a Frigga as your main, you're susceptible to chaoses, so that I just threw out my chaos right there and stopped him from being able to heal, and now he's in big trouble. Which is, of course, what I'm trying to do is stop him from keeping his troops alive, and chaoses can be good for that. They changed how Chaos Rune works. I actually wrote a big article about chaoses in Class Wars that we were going to publish on the Dolly Games site but then they changed it last month, or they changed it just a couple weeks ago, I guess. And so it used to be that chaoses wouldn't, like if you're chaosed, you can't hit any sylphs. You'll only hit players or Eudaimon. But now they fixed it, and now you can hit players and Eudaimon alike. So I was kind of taken aback this month. I thought I was going to be able to use that to my advantage, and then it turned out it didn't work out that way. So it's still a pretty decent advantage with the chaoses. I keep on going back and forth on chaos runes because, you know, in this month I was able to use it tactically here and there, and Asher used it every fight to great advantage. But I've also seen it really backfire, where using a Sacred Knight and you throw out a Chaos first turn and you accidentally hit your own Eudaimon. Oh, here's Ellington. This is a really close fight. This is the closest I think she and I have ever had. And we've been talking a lot as we've been working on the Dolly Games site together, and so it's fun fighting someone that I'm good friends with, especially since we're so evenly matched. When I fight Asher, it's not evenly matched anymore, so she's the only real close fight I have with a friend in Class Wars nowadays. She does this every single time I fight her, though, is that she just keeps me on the cusp of being able to get into Sylph mode for turn after turn. And it drives me crazy. I don't know if it's her Sylphs that are just lined up perfectly to do that, or if it's her passives, knighthood passives that are proccing over and over again. I don't know what it is, but I never get into Sylph mode before 50% against her. The 50% damage increase. But I do finally get into Sylph mode, and now she's out of Sylph mode and is looking to not be in good shape, but she's hitting me pretty hard. I'm just clinging to life. Oh, and that would have been a hit right there. That would have taken her out. Yeah, and she comments there in chat. Whew! So, that was a good fight. Good job, Ellington. I think that's the first time she's beaten me in a couple months, so congratulations to her. So then, here's Onslaught using an Odin, and I think that's his only fused self, because he's not using any as backup. Odins are awesome. They're really, really tanky. They're so overused that a lot of people are running really high light and dark resistances now, which reduces their effectiveness, obviously. And so that's why Asher was using his Thor, and that's why I'm using Fire Self instead of a Dark Self. I don't have a Odin myself, and I don't feel a lot of pressure to get an Odin because it's pretty much useless in PvP unless you have really high stats, because players will just run, 60,000 light and dark resistance, and there's nothing you can do. I feel like this game has changed quite a bit from where it used to be, and now it's all about either you kill your opponent in one shot or you do no damage at all. Because attacks hit so hard, but then there's also those really tough shields at the same time. So either they have a Guardian rune on, or a Guardian Titan, or some kind of shield, and you do no damage at all, or they don't have a shield on, and you just kill them in one shot. And it's all just kind of a flip of the coin. Whereas a year ago, the game used to be a lot more incremental, where you would whittle your opponents down, and then heals were a lot more advantageous. Centauria kind of dominated the game for a while. That was 2 years ago that Centauria was big. And here's Zardoz, who's much, much stronger than me. His stats are just vastly superior. Here I'm trying to get in a good shot before he gets into Sylph mode, but I fail. It's really important to hit Odins before they get into Sylph mode, because once he's in, he gets that 40% reduction to all damage as long as he's in Sylph mode. So I really can't hurt him when he's in Sylph mode. Only chance I have to hurt him at all is to take him out before. I think if I had gotten that shot off before he got into Sylph mode, this could have been a pretty close fight. Or at least a little closer than it was. At least I killed his troops. Can't complain about that. But he's just really tanky and tough. So you can see in our guild chat, Asher and I are talking about who's using what sylphs. Asher said that he just got really lucky this month, and that his energy control passive activated almost every attack for all 15 fights. And if you're not familiar, that's the energy control is the passive that the arcane skills for mages for knighthood have, that has a 30% chance of reducing your opponent's awakening points by, I think it's like 150 to 300 awakening points, something like that. And although it's supposed to be, I think it's 30% chance of activating, he said it activated almost every single attack. So he just got really lucky with that activating, and that's why he was able to be so successful. So here's Chilimac running 3 Friggas. I don't know if I've seen 3 Friggas being used before. I considered getting a 3rd Frigga myself. The problem with having a 3rd Frigga is that you can only use it once a month in Class Wars. There's no other place in the game to use 3 Friggas. I guess you could try to... You could use it in like Sylph Arena or Sylph Expedition, but I don't think that's the most practical setup for those. And here's Ray 7, always phenomenally tough. You pretty much have to beat Ray to win Class Wars. And Asher almost never beats Ray, and so he's kind of always gunning for her or him. And he managed to beat her this time around, and so he got his first place. But if you don't beat Ray, you're probably going to be taking, at best, 2nd, even if Ray doesn't win. Back in February, I beat Ray, but still didn't win. But I think Ray just had a pretty worse showing that month. I don't know what was going on with Ray then. So here, not much I can do against Ray. Your only way to really fight Ray is to have 150,000 wind resistance and vastly superior stats and pray and get into Sylph mode first. And here's Rira, also really tough, using his Odin. And here I got into Sylph mode. I think he gave me awakening points because I used my chaos. So here I was actually a little hopeful of beating Rira this time around. I got into Sylph mode first. He's a long ways from getting into Sylph mode. I'm trying to kill off his Eudaimon, and then I can use a Delphic. But those dang Guardian shields and Guardian Titans and Guardian runes. Alright, here's a big hit. Oh, I only hit for 1.5 million though, and he has like 3.5 million health. So my stats aren't high enough to take out Rira. I played this as best as I possibly could. This is like a best case scenario fight against Rira, and it just comes down to me not having enough stats. And at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do against players who just have that much more defense and intellect than yourself. So, props to Rira. I actually am hanging on to life there. There we go. So, there was that fight. I think next time I'm going to try staggering my steals instead of having them both at the same time. I think that helps keep players out of Sylph mode better. I think that's what Ellington always does. So I'll see how that works. I've always done them in the same round, but I've had varying success with that. Here's Robert. Not seen him in Warlord's Hall as often, so it's good to see him here. Not really familiar with him at all as a player, but he's also using a Frigga as a main. So that's the 4th player we've seen now, after Chili and Ellington were the other 2, besides the first one. And there I just hit him for 3.5 million. So, yeah, if I can get into Sylph mode first, I can hit most of these players really hard. There's just a couple of those really tanky ones that I still can't beat. And then Groot again. So here I'm kind of saving rage. You see, I have enough rage to do some bigger hits, but I'm still doing weaker attacks. And that is so that when I drop out of Sylph mode later in the fight, I have the rage to do Lightbringer, and I can jump right back up. Because I'm not using my Rage Rune anymore. Back when I used my Rage Rune, I didn't have to worry about that, and I could use all my strong attacks all the time. But here, looks like Groot did his steal right off the bat, and almost knocked me out of Sylph mode, but then my 2 Sylphs did their steal. Keeping me up. So, I keep on going back and forth. You know, there's so many runes that would be good. It would be good to have a heal rune also. But between the Guardian rune, the Titan, the Rage rune, and then the Chaos, it's hard to pick, you know? And I guess that's kind of the point. You gotta cater your strategy. Looks like Asher hasn't fought Ray yet. They're 12 and 12 at the moment. When he finally beats Ray, he starts prancing about in guild chat. Or no, he did. He lost one. I forget who he lost to. He already beat Ray, so Ray has one loss, but then Asher also has a loss. So I don't remember who he lost to. But Asher has less BR than Ray right here, which would put him in 2nd. And so right around this time, Asher started asking me how to fluff up his BR. So I gave him a bunch of advice about how to increase his BR to win the tiebreaker and take first. Here's Fealindale, who I always confuse with Salistar. Their names are too similar. I always confuse the two. They're kind of similar in strength. I think Fealindale is tougher, if I remember right. So I always confuse those two. Whenever I'm fighting one, I never know if it's the one that I can beat or the one that I'm hopeless against. So I kind of treat them the same. But there I lose. So yeah, there you can see Asher just jumped ahead of Ray in BR with one fight to go. And here's Ice. Using Lightbringer, getting into Sylph mode right away. I did not put the Rage Steal on my Eudaemon this time around. I just went defensive, which I think actually hurt me a little bit. I was trying to keep my Eudaemon long enough to get some stuns out of him, but it just didn't work out. So, I don't think I'm going to try that again. The Rage Steal is just too powerful. It's too good for early game. So here against Ice, using the same kind of Sylph setup that I usually use, but I have my 2nd Frigga now, so I'm able to run 2 Friggas if I'm not using one myself. And now this is the big hit. Watch this hit. I love this hit. And boom! 7 million damage, and I die on Reflect. That's the biggest hit I think I've ever hit on another player. So that's it. There's the end of Class Wars, with Asher coming up with his big win, and then Ray 7 and Big Bailey in 2nd and 3rd. So congratulations to all of the victors, and stay tuned for more videos.